Becoming an adult who is able to recognize children's agency and to undertake concrete steps to foster and encourage it is a lifelong process. In most societies, we're socialized to think of children as inferior and incapable of making decisions. In humanitarian and development settings, we concentrate on the harms that can happen to children rather than upon the competencies that they are developing. The language of orphans and vulnerable children, for example, highlights vulnerability rather than resilience. In one of the most extreme examples from the humanitarian world, child protection and emergency specialists long thought of children associated with armed forces and groups only from a lens of victimhood. While it is true that children who have become associated with armed forces and groups have been victims of grave violations of their rights, at the same time, some of these children leave their time with armed forces and groups and describe the leadership, organizational, and other skills that they were able to gain through their association. Ironically, sometimes the gravest violations of children's rights can have a silver lining. For child protection workers to be able to truly foster children's agency, we must not only examine our vocabularies and mindsets, but also build up a set of skills, or several sets of skills, in the same way that even people who are not naturally inclined to be teachers can learn to improve their teaching skills. Child protection workers who would like to support children's agency can build up skills in working with individual children and skills in working with groups and movements of children. Children can be naturally daunted by their interactions with adults, especially those whom they do not know. So child protection workers must strategize their efforts to encourage children to voice their thoughts, ideas, questions, and concerns. Communicating with children, especially with individual children, may come naturally to some people, but communicating with children who have been exposed to trauma, abuse, exploitation, or other child protection concerns that emerge in humanitarian settings requires special care and consideration. The field of psychology, with its focus on empathetic, active listening, has much to offer in the way of lessons about communicating with children. But of course, psychologists are not present in all humanitarian settings. Finding the natural helpers in a community, those who are able to communicate with children and seek out their perceptions, should be a crucial step for child protection workers. Sometimes teachers, social workers, and others whom we wouldn't suspect are able to establish rapport with children. Of course, working with children will vary tremendously depending on the child or children involved. Working with various age groups of children requires different sets of skills, and gender considerations will also come into account as well. Working with children with mental disabilities will require people who have the skill and experience to do so. Although we are not encouraging the over-professionalization of the field of child protection, we also recognize that communicating with children in distress is a skill-based activity, and that not all adults will have these skills. There are several instances in humanitarian settings in which child protection workers are likely to work directly with individual children in distress. These may include during best interest processes for unaccompanied and separated refugee children and internally displaced children, family tracing and reunification processes, psychosocial activities undertaken by specialized staff, or case management for children who have been identified through a program or service delivery mechanism as requiring urgent action. In each of these cases and more, child protection workers will need to know not only how to communicate with children, but to communicate in such a way that children also reflect upon and make use of the resources that they have available within them and around them to overcome adversity. While we must be careful to avoid shifting responsibility for resilience to children, we should also help them to believe in their own skills and capacities. This self-efficacy will be key to child resilience, development, and health trajectories.